that didn't happen. Well, that is a new one. So, what's up, everybody? We are the That's Wrestling podcast. We are running way late because I felt like crap on Thursday. Caleb couldn't make it on Friday. Trey felt like crap on Friday. And then this morning, when we were going to record, Caleb messages me and says, "Hey, I don't have any electricity." I'm like, oh, great. And now he still doesn't even have any. He doesn't have any internet, so he's using the internet on his phone. So this has just been a cluster and a half.
This show is brought to you by iPhone and Bose earbuds.
All right. So yeah, I have some thoughts on this show, and I'm gonna try to keep it as PG as possible. Trey is usually the one who drops all the F-bombs, so we'll try to keep it clean today. But I'm gonna ask you right off the bat, what did this show are you excited to see Shaq and Kobe?
I'm excited to see Shaq and Cody. No, that was probably one of the letdowns of this show, to be frankly honest. However, I did like the show. I don't know. I feel like I haven't gotten your opinion on this yet. I thought it was a pretty good show. I thought there were a couple very strong matches, and I thought that some of the story progression is picking up. So I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority here. Well, there's only two of us, so there can't be a minority. Maybe we're opposed. But no, I thought this was a very good show with a couple of spots. And no, I'm not excited for Shaq and Cody at all. I thought that Shaq's promo or whatever it was they showed on there did nothing for me. He seemed a little, out of his element, but of course he is. He's not a wrestler. And there was one critique I had of the show, and I will say, and it was a running theme, is that they kept spoiling stuff before a video package. They had a video package to show something, but instead of letting the video package tell us whatever new news, they just put it up on a graphic or the announcers mentioned it. And then they could have just waited for, later in the show to have something explained a lot better, in my opinion. You'll see in a few minutes, but it was a little wonky in that area. But yeah, overall, it was a strong show.
Yeah, all right. So we do have some missteps in this show. And I agree with you. I actually really like this show as well. But Shaq and Cody, I couldn't care less. Like, I don't give a crap about this match at all. I don't want to see it. It's a waste of spot on a pay-per-view. Yeah, just nothing there. But, okay.
Right. I mean, that's kind of how celebrity matches have been for a long time, in my opinion. And also with the caveat that this is actually Shaq and Cody and Jade and Red Velvet.
Right.
So we'll get into that, but
doesn't make it much better. But okay, so here is my biggest problem with this show that drove me so freaking nuts this week. And it's kind of been getting worse. And this stood out horribly in at least 3 of the matches. And that is, these matches are getting ridiculously formulaic. They are like WWE level of predictability when it comes to before the commercial break, nothing matters. Who gives a crap? Because then there's going to be a commercial break, and what happens every single time, they do nothing throughout the entire commercial break. It's just getting heat on somebody, and either if you're watching in picture and you see the tide turn, the commercial break is over, or as the second they say, "Hey, we're back on TNT," that the person who's getting beat down is going to turn the tide. That happened 3 matches so predictably. I was watching on Fight, so of course I'm not watching picture-in-picture. I'm not watching the commercials, so I can't line it up. But there was 2 matches where the babyface turned the tide, and I knew within the next 5 seconds, JR is going to say, "We're back live on TNT." Or the other one was, "We're back live on TNT. I know the exact next move is going to be turning the tide." It's like, oh my God, this is getting horrible. Their matches are so formulaic at this point. Basically, you can skip the first half of the match because it doesn't matter until after the commercial break is over.
I definitely felt that as well this week. I noticed, just like you said, there were a couple moments when literally he's like, and we're back. And then all of a sudden, boom, back elbow. Let's go. Babyface is back in it. You know what I mean? I think that definitely happened with Dax and Jungle Boy, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yep.
As well as a couple other matches, like you mentioned. And I specifically remember thinking, oh, like now picture-in-picture is over, right? So like I watched the picture-in-picture, and you can just immediately tell, like when the match shifts. And then from there, it's kind of like a 50-50. What's going to happen from the end of commercial break to the end of the match is anyone's ball game. So the only caveat or disagreement I would have there is that specifically like in the match with Dax and Jungle Boy this week, there was some because it was a very traditional wrestling match, and there was some targeting of body parts in the first half. Which came into play later on in the match. Both Jungle Boy and Dax, I think, couldn't quite hit some moves based on the focus. And actually to Eddie Kingston as well. Eddie Kingston's match in the very beginning, which was very short, but he targeted, Lance Archer's legs, and that came into play a little bit. So, I mean, I think that there is still some psychological setup in the first half of these matches, but I think you're right in that whoever is on top during the commercial break will quickly have that reversed on them, and then it's really kind of a 50-50 on who wins the match from there. Yeah, so it's a good point to make.
I specifically wrote it down in 3 matches. I just checked. So MJF Jericho versus Varsity Blondes, and then Dax Harwood and Jungle Boy, and then Shayna versus Britt. Same thing. It was exactly the same format every single time. And I think the only reason it didn't happen in Kingston Archer is because they didn't go into a commercial break. Same with Hangman and Nemeth. They didn't go through a commercial break either. And then I believe Good Brothers and Dark Order, did they even hit a commercial break? I don't think they had a commercial break either. Oh, no. They did have a commercial break. Oh, so make that 4 matches. 4 matches, I wrote that down specifically that happened. So 4 of the 6 matches. Do you think,
even though that's predictable, right? Like that the tide will turn at the end of the commercial break, do you still feel like that makes the matches worse?
Yes.
Okay.
Because you know exactly when everything is going to happen, and it happens every single time, especially if it happens 4 times on one show. Like, they're always pushing picture-in-picture, but if nothing happens in picture-in-picture, then who gives a crap?
That's a good point. I didn't feel like it really detracted. The only places I really heavily noticed it were Jungle Boy and Dax, which was a great match anyway, but like I definitely noticed it. And then Britt and Shayna, I noticed it as well. I must not have picked it up on the other matches. But to me, like, it's not so much a major detractor, so much as like they understand that they need to have, a good TV match. And part of a TV match is commercials, unfortunately. So like, what are you going?
All right, well, he just cut out. So I'm going to take over for a second and say...
I think. And you're going to end up...
Oh, you back? There, you're back. Oh, maybe you're not back.
Sorry.
Okay, so as far as TV matches, commercials don't have to be part of it. You can lay out the format so you don't put a commercial in the middle of a match. Basically, segments can be, 13 minutes long between commercials. You could easily, going out to a commercial, start somebody's entrance, and then it doesn't screw it for the live crowd because you can do their full entrance. You can do the full entrance of the opponent, and you come back from commercial at the end of the entrance, and you start the match, and you don't stick a commercial in the middle of the match. And we're having fun with connections. So we will move on from now, and we'll just get into this actual show here if you want to try to reconnect or something like that. But we are... You're listening to the That's Wrestling podcast. If you have any comments, questions, feedback, you can send those to Eric at that'swrestling.com. We also have a Discord server. The link is in the show notes. Also, if you want to head over to your favorite podcast app of choice, leave us a review. It really helps out. And There's one more thing I usually... Oh, if you're listening to this as a podcast, head over to the YouTube channel because we do this show live. Of course, this got pushed around. But we will actually be doing tonight, if you download this before 6 p.m. Eastern on Saturday the 30th, we're actually going to be doing a roundtable discussion. What if AEW and New Japan open their doors to each other? So that's going to be an interesting discussion. Plus, what we're going to be talking a little bit, kind of some future lookout for more realistic on the AEW and New Japan end as well. And tonight this morning, I have Caleb Johnson back on his phone because his internet is out.
Hey, sir. Internet's out, so we're doing the best we can to make this work. I'm really hoping that it's back up before our roundtable tonight, because I definitely hope to be a part of that discussion. And in honor, today I'm wearing my Bullet Club t-shirt, because the Bullet Club was mentioned more than once yesterday. Well, actually, no, I think it was mentioned once, and it was mentioned once last week, or maybe twice yesterday.
Yeah, it was mentioned twice this week.
Twice this week. Okay, I knew it was at least once. But, and I know that the second week in a row that someone has literally said the words Bullet Club.
Yeah, and it was specifically in reference to the Good Brothers.
Right. So something tells me that I think they might be at least giving passive approval for them using that, because that New Japan, I think they own Bullet Club.
Correct.
That's a registered trademark.
Yep.
So this shirt says New Japan Pro Wrestling on the back. So I think that's very interesting to me personally, and I'm really excited to see where that heads.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one, especially they came out in Bullet Club gear at the Impact show. Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers did. And then Tony Schiavone tonight specifically referred to Good Brothers and, well, basically the entire group of Good Brothers, Bucks, and Kenny as the Bullet Club. And then actually Moxley said the same thing as well. He's like, I don't even know who's in the Bullet Club. Is it Moxley? So this is direct reference, and it's not just, some people kicked it off as far as them wearing Bullet Club t-shirts as well. They didn't say they were in the Bullet Club. They can't do anything about them wearing Bullet Club t-shirts, but like here they are being specifically referred to as the Bullet Club. So it's definitely going to be interesting how it goes. So let's get into this show. We were talking about AEW Dynamite for January 27th, 2021. And we actually kick off the night with Lance Archer versus Eddie Kingston. Archer actually sends Jake the Snake away, so it's just going to be Kingston and Lance Archer out there. Eddie didn't actually come out with anybody. This is going to be a poor decision on their part. Archer is clearly the stronger of the two, but Kingston uses eye pokes and rakes, and he gets a lot of headway that way, lots of striking. Kingston uses some rabbit punches to the kidneys, and Kingston tries a shoulder block at one point, but Lance Archer just sends him flying. And then Lance Archer gives Kingston a choke slam over the top rope onto the apron, and Kingston just kind of landed hip first. That's about all that hit the edge of the ring, and that looked like it sucked. And then back in the ring, he hits a full Nelson bomb. Kingston hits a desperation drop kick to the knee, and then Kingston actually escapes a blackout attempt, and but Lance Archer hits the moonsault off the top rope walk. And then Archer uses the EBD claw, but out of the tunnel comes Butcher and the Blade, dragging what looked like a beat-up Jake Roberts. And while the attention of the ref and Lance Archer are occupied, Ali runs in, gives Kingston what looks like a loaded fist wrap, basically. He gives a back fist to Archer when he comes back and knocks him out and gets the victory, and then Butcher and Blade come in after the match and give their finisher to Archer as well. So we have Eddie Kingston pulling out the heel victory here, using a loaded fist wrap, basically. This was kind of a weird setup because I don't know, is Lance Archer supposed to be a babyface at this point, or is he kind of, it depends who his opponent is, whether he's the one on the babyface side or not?
Exactly where I think he is. I think depending on who he's matched up against for the week, I think he's kind of a tweener right now. And I certainly don't mind him in that role, to be honest. I thought that him sending Jake Roberts to the back was an interesting touch. I really liked that. I thought that, and plus he's kind of got, it sounds kind of weird, but like he's kind of got like a character and music and a lot about Lance Archer. I think is something that people can get behind. I think he's kind of popular. He's definitely got a cool story, out of kayfabe. He seems like a good guy. So, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of things about him that people enjoy. And I think everyone likes to sing Everybody Dies, which I know I fall into that camp. So I really do think it depends on his opponent right now. And maybe they have use for that. You know what I mean? Someone who can kind of get into the ring with a heel or a babyface and can be the towering monster, or can be the, babyface against a cheating opponent like Eddie Kingston. So I actually didn't mind this at all. Usually I'm very black and white on whether my characters are heel or face. But in this case, I think it works for me. And I like the finish a lot as well. I thought Allin running out with the weighted glove or the fist wrap there was pretty funny. She like yelled at the camera, or not yelled, but I think she smiled at the camera. She slips him the wrap. I just thought the ending of this match was kind of neat. It's a little bit old school. And also, I know we've mentioned this before, Butcher and Blade's gear is so much better than it was when they showed up. When they showed up, they had weird gear. And now, like, Blade with the suspenders down, like, he looks cool. I really think he looks cool. And Butcher with the white pants and the tattoos and he's still got the giant facial hair going on. I think they look pretty formidable as a team.
Yeah, he's got the skullet going on these days.
The skullet.
But yeah, I thought this was perfectly fine. Looks like they're going to be continuing on the Lance Archer Eddie Kingston feud here. Don't know how it's going to play out or where they're going to go with it. But yeah, we'll see in the end. There was something you said in there but I was looking at I was looking at network stuff. All right. I don't remember. So,
you know what else? One other thing too about this match is that it actually started. I didn't think they were going to go with the cheating heel finish here, because when it started, Archer they just start taking it to each other immediately as soon as Archer gets in the ring. But then Eddie starts like working on his leg. He's kind of kicking him, and it's very almost UFC in that, like, he's giving him those thigh kicks. He's weakening the base of the larger man. He had some, offense in the beginning of this match, Eddie Kingston, that is, that made me think, like, this is kind of cerebral. Like, he's taking his time with this match. He's chopping down the bigger guy. If Triple H is the cerebral assassin, then I would say that Eddie Kingston is like the cerebral gangbanger or something. Yeah. But literally, like, he doesn't, sometimes, like, he starts a match and I'm like, he's just gonna have a good real wrestling match, and then it like devolves into a heel victory.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, he kind of used what tactics he could to try to get Lance Archer, off his game, and he's using the classic eye pokes and whatnot, but the rabbit punches to the kidneys when they're in the ropes. I mean, I thought that was a nice little touch too, just being really targeted about what he's doing and not just kind of going through the motions that you kind of see in a lot of matches. They run down the card for the night after this. I was gonna say Lance Archer. You said something outside of kayfabe about him being actually a pretty cool guy. Do you even know how old he is?
I think he's older than I think he is.
Yeah.
I want to, like, if you asked me that, I would say, like, probably, like, 30, 32. I think he's older than that.
He is 43 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't think he was in his 40s. But I thought maybe, like, late 30s.
But then, also, on the good guy side, he has been married to his wife for 25 years. They have been married since they were 18 years old.
I'm 28 years old. That does not, when I look at Lance Archer, I would never have thought that.
Right? All right.
Wow.
Oh, actually, a little off topic here. Back to outside the ring. Did you listen to the AEW Unrestricted podcast this week?
I know I need to, though. I'm probably going to listen to it today.
Yeah, it was. So for those who haven't listened, go listen to it. It was Amanda Hoover, John Hoover, Brody Lee's wife. She basically talked about everything that kind of happened and whatnot. And just one of the things that I had to point out is when they knew they were going to have to take John off of life support, this was on Christmas Eve is when they told her, he is not going to make it. We need to talk about end of life type of stuff. She's like, I just got home. It is Christmas Eve. I have a 3-year-old and an 8 or a 7-year-old at the time, or 8-year-old, whatever. She's like, we'll have to deal with this later. And they're like, well, he might not make it till later. She's like, well, that's a risk I'm going to have to take. And then basically what she did on Christmas Day, she called Cody and Big E to ask them if they would come to Jacksonville to be with her when they told Brody Lee Jr. that his dad passed away. And they dropped everything. This is Christmas evening. And they, Cody drove down from Atlanta. I think Big E's probably in Orlando. And they drove there because they were his 2 favorite wrestlers and the ones that he had gotten the closest to throughout the years. Like, they always played video games, he and Big E backstage, and obviously Cody's like his favorite. So I thought that was a really sweet thing for them to do. They came down to Jacksonville to be with Brody Lee Jr. when they have to break this horrible news to him. It's just like one of the saddest things.
Oh, it broke my heart, man. Like I said, I haven't listened to the podcast yet, but I actually did see a bit of a synopsis on it. Someone had written up a little bit of what had happened on Reddit. So I was reading through that, and it was just kind of a timeline of what Amanda talked about on the podcast. And when I got to that part, that just broke me, man. That's so rough. Like, that's something that no one should ever have to do. Someone should never have to, have their favorite wrestlers come tell them that their dad's passed away. But it's incredible for Cody and Big E to just be willing to absolutely drop everything on Christmas of all days to, be with them and be with the family. And it seems like just one of the impressions I got from that is just how tight this wrestling community is and how supportive they can be of one another at risk of, Big E not working for AEW. Like, it doesn't matter at that point. It's something much bigger than that. And it made me just a little bit sad that when we had the -1 fantasy booked, tribute show, that we couldn't have had Big E in that tag match because they said he put together his favorite wrestlers. And I'm like, yeah, we probably could have had Big E instead of Preston Vance. I know Preston Vance is a good buddy of Brody Jr. for sure. They're buddies, but like, would have been nice to slip a little Big E in there. That would have been fun. Have him come out under, a lucha mask or something.
And then she also, one other thing that she addressed is like how, the family's been there a lot. -1 has been there a lot. And she's like, no, this is not exploiting the family or anything like this. Brody wants to be here, and I think you guys have created a bit of a monster now because now he always wants to be at Dynamite like every week and all this stuff. So I think it's pretty funny, just kind of how that has also been going down as well. That she's like, now you've created a monster in this guy. If he didn't want to be here, we wouldn't be here, but he always wants to be here, so we're always here.
I like to hear it.
All right, so moving on in the show, Moxley, he's cutting a promo out in front of a chain link fence, and I did not write this down word for word, one, because he was talking really fast, and I would not be able to do justice to what he actually said in this promo. Go check it out. I'm sure it's probably clipped out on the YouTube channel, but this is this is Moxley just nailing a promo. Like, I don't think he's had a a less than excellent promo since coming to AEW. He talks about how he's confused about what's going on. The Bucks are champions. The Good Brothers are world champions. They're friends with Kenny, and now Penta, Phoenix, and Pac have this Death Triangle thing. They don't like the Elite. They certainly don't like me. But now I'm teaming with them. And then he says, I don't know what's going to happen next week at Beach Break, but it's going to be Knox. It's going to be nuts, or whatever he said.
Yeah, this was very, very good. To be honest, like you said, Moxley, since arriving in AEW, I don't think he's had a bad promo. The worst promo has probably literally been a 7 out of 10. Like, I mean, and everything. He just does things very genuinely. He seems like a very genuine kind of person. And I don't mean that genuine like in a sweet way, but what I mean is like true to himself. Like, he comes out here and he is Jon Moxley, aka Jonathan Good, just turned up to 11 basically. So he gets to come out here and be himself and not have to read off a script. And I think that of everyone in this company, it benefits him the most to just say what he wants and what's coming off the top of his head, because he nails it every single time. It was pretty funny, actually, because you and I have talked a little bit about why he's teaming with what it was going to be Penta and Phoenix. Now it's going to be Pac and Phoenix following the beatdown of Penta last week by Kenny and the Good Brothers. So this has changed up a little bit, and I think you and I have both been a little confused on just exactly how they're, why are they teaming here? What's going on? We've talked a little bit about that. So it was funny to have Jon Moxley get out there and be like, I don't know what's going on, but there'll be bloodshed, so I'll be there, kind of thing, which is totally his motive. But he also, he had a couple killer lines. I'm trying to remember what he was talking about. But toward the end of the promo, he made a couple of lines, and the one that stuck with me, I don't know why, it was just funny when he said, I like to have sex in the morning because it's a good way to start the day.
Right.
And I was just like, what are we talking about? But also, you're very charismatic. I think you're funny.
I think it was like, I like my beer cold, my coffee hot, my water at room temperature. I like to have sex in the morning because it's a good way to start the day. Something like that.
When he said like those two lines, I was just like, I think I lost you, but I like it. I like what I'm hearing.
Yeah. That was going out to commercial, I believe, and then coming back from commercial, we had a Darby Allin Sting promo. This promo was a little strange. They're in an abandoned warehouse-looking place. They're standing in front of this wall, the multiple panes of glass that you normally see in an old warehouse. And Sting says that, Taz, you want to call me and Darby hoodlums? Hoodlums, you know what? Darby is a hoodlum. And then Darby stands up and says, in the street, there's no such thing as fighting dirty. It's just about survival. And then he throws his skateboard through one of the windows behind him and then says, Sting is a hoodlum just like me. And Sting looks at the camera, thinks about it for a second, and then turns around and starts smashing windows with his baseball bat. And then he turns back to the camera and says, you know what? I am a hoodlum. At Revolution, in a street fight, it's going to be showtime. The delivery from Sting, not so great.
The delivery from Sting and the repeated use of the word hoodlum over and over, I was just like, first of all, hoodlum does not sound like a word that is cool, that you would call yourself. Hoodlum seems like a word that your dad would call you.
Well, that's what Sting called them. I mean, Taz called them.
I get it, but I just think that the word is kind of dated, and it's just weird. I don't know. I thought this was very strange. I thought the delivery and the dynamic between the two of these guys is strange. I really wish that they could just stop, because they're doing a lot of comparisons, but in this promo, they were making it very, very obvious that they're trying to compare Darby to Sting. And they're like, you're a hoodlum, I'm a hoodlum. We cut from the same cloth. They didn't say that, but it's all they had to do was basically say, look, it's Junior Sting. They haven't done that, but
right.
that got pretty close. Whereas the similarities are obvious to us. Let him sit up in the bleachers, the rafters, let him have his face painted, let them look at each other. They're both wearing a lot of black and white, and just be let it be subtle and let it be obvious. But instead they were look, we both like to stand in warehouses and break windows and be hoodlums, which is like, again, a word my dad uses. So I'm like, this didn't do it for me.
Well, I mean,
And to be
Sting is
honest,
probably older than your dad.
That's fair. That's fair. My dad's in his early 50s. My dad's like 52. It's probably pretty close. But then when we went back to the commentary team, like, they didn't really know what to say either. Like, I think JR was like, well, that's powerful stuff. And I was like, is it though? Like, it feels kind of weird. So I didn't really like this. I think that it's better if they leave some things unsaid and just be like, there's just obvious similarities here. Let them be a team.
I mean, this has always been an issue with Sting promos anyways. Like, once he starts talking, the mystique kind of goes away. Especially because the voice does not match the person. Like, the person you're looking at, the voice that comes out...
Rocks.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, that's one of the things. It's like, once Sting starts talking, it's like... The voice is fine if you've changed up your cadence, maybe. But it just, I don't know. It just never works. Like, once he starts talking, I'm like, this guy doesn't seem dangerous at all.
No, he doesn't seem as dangerous. He really does better, especially, too, because the makeup looks so good with his mouth closed, like the straight lines. Like, I think that, and I don't want to sound rude, but, like, just keep it closed and walk in there and, like, it's the aura. That's what's cool about him, is the snow, the entrance, a baseball bat, like a vigilante, you know, when he was in WWE, they had like the crow, like, Paka! And like, I just thought that was so cool. But when he promos, you're like, he sounds like a normal guy and he uses words like a normal guy. When he was in a program with Seth Rollins, like, it was just like, like you said, he opens his mouth and you're like, oh, okay, you're just a dude.
Yeah.
Like, and a dude who like doesn't even use big vocabulary words at that. You're just like normal.
Yeah, so this is the one time I am ever gonna say this is the style you should use, but Sting should be one of the guys who gets mad and yells his promo.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep. If he swapped voices and tones with like Dustin Rhodes, we'd be fine.
Right.
If he had Dustin Rhodes' voice and screaming all the time, I would love Sting.
Yeah. But he just feels so subdued. And even so, in this promo, they could have just had Darby cut the entire promo. And it probably would have been way better.
I agree with that.
All right, we move on to Chris Jericho and MJF versus the Varsity Blondes. Before the match starts, MJF grabs the mic and tries to convince Griff to lay down for him, since the last time they were in the ring together was actually in the I Quit match, where MJF basically embarrassed the crap out of Griff Garrison. Of course, this was very early in Griff being in AEW. But Griff's like, nope, screw this, and then he just punches him in the head and attacks, and he starts beating on MJF until MJF basically has to tag out to Jericho, and even then, Jericho ends up getting a beat down from Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr. for a bit, until MJF on the outside buries a knee into the back of Brian Pillman Jr., when he was running into the ropes, and then they get the heat on Pillman throughout the commercial break. Jericho sets up Pillman on the top rope, but Jericho gets pushed off, and Pillman hits a cross body and gets a tag out to Griff. And this is where I wrote, this match is getting super formulaic, where AEW goes to commercial break, gets the heat up throughout the commercial, and then as soon as the commercial comes back, is over, the comeback happens. It's like, here, I mean, you can work, we talked about it, but I just had another thought. Really? You could still go like another 30 seconds after the commercial to then start the comeback after, so it doesn't feel like it's so formulaic every time.
Yeah, I agree. But really, I think my problem is that, just like you said, it's formulaic. It's something that we can predict and that we expect at this point, but I can't fault them for not doing, I don't want them to start the last chunk of their match, right, where things are going to start heating up. I don't want them to start that during commercial break, because sometimes you don't always watch picture-in-picture. Sometimes there's a trailer for a new movie, and you're like, whoa, is that Godzilla, fighting King Kong? And then, 10 minutes later, it's like, oh, well, I missed a good part of this match. So I can't always fault them, but the timing of it is way too repetitive. Every single time they're going to use the end of the commercial break immediately, right then, to, like you said, start essentially what is now the next match almost, because now it's kind of a 50-50 on who's going to win.
Right. Give it another 30 seconds after the commercial's over. Give it a minute and allow the baby face to like attempt a hope spot but get cut off type of deal. That's before the comeback actually starts. Anyways, the comeback happens, but of course it is short-lived. The Varsity Blondes end up losing once Jericho drops Pillman with a Judas effect, and Jericho hit the lion salt for good measure to shut up all the critics from last week from his botched lion salt. Of course, everybody who was like critiquing the lion salt were like non-wrestlers, and then all the wrestlers were like, it was completely just a time. There was a dude standing in front of him that he had to kind of go around, and it was just threw off the timing. It had nothing to do with his ability. And like, that's what I said last week too. I'm like, it was fine. Like, obviously it was bad that he pretty much landed. I'm not going to tell Jericho not to do it. He can do it perfectly fine. It was just kind of a weird setup how it happened, and it just didn't go off right. That's it. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And I critiqued him for it last week, so he showed me for sure. I think that, and like you said, it wasn't his fault last week, for sure. But this week he executed a perfect lion salt, and that was definitely to shut up the haters too, because he'd already hit in the Judas effect. Like, it wasn't like it was a, set up a signature move, then a finisher move. Like, he hit his finisher and then was just like, you know what? Shut up. And he decided to hit it anyway.
And stares into the camera after it.
Yeah, he did too. Just like looked up. So I thought that was pretty funny. I liked it a lot. And here's one thing that this match, I understand, we talked about the formula of the commercial break. But one thing that I did like about this match is that it didn't actually go, even though it was through commercial, it didn't go too long. And I think sometimes AEW has a tendency to put on longer matches when really they're just trying to tell another step of a story, right? I noticed it in the women's division a few weeks ago, like where they put on this long match, but really it's an angle for, I don't know, Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, kind of like tonight. And I'm like, if that's the idea, then that's fine. But like, put them up against an opponent that they can beat, like, you know what I mean, in a few minutes. And that's exactly what they did here. They put MJF and Jericho against a team who they gave something to, but not too much. And they beat them fairly handily, because this really was about furthering the tension between Sammy and MJF, and also giving a win to MJF and Jericho, because they're on their way, I think, to the tag title scene. So it kind of accomplished everything you needed to do, and they didn't make the match go 15 minutes, or you know what I mean? Like, sometimes I think they fall into that trap. So I was very happy with everything they did here, minus, like you said, the predictable commercial break.
Yeah, and before the match, actually, during MJF's speech, he also made an offhanded comment that Sammy, we need to talk after this match as well. And then when the Inner Circle all got into the ring, there was a lot of tension between MJF and Sammy post-match during the celebration, but there was nothing that was mic'd up or anything, so it just went on to the next segment after that. So, but we do get some MJF Sammy in a little bit. We had Pac. He had a video package sent in from his flat, talking about how Kenny and Don Callis are just manipulators, and they beat up Penta, and now Pac and Phoenix will be coming for them at Beach Break. And also, why can't Pac wear clothes?
Right. So, like, he's doing this from his flat. Like, he owns that place, right? His clothes are probably in that room or in that building. So, like, you can wear clothes. You don't have to wear ring gear at home. I thought that was.
Or walking
funny.
around
But
in the streets.
I'll tell you this. Right. What got me about this one is that they had already announced earlier that Pac would be replacing Pentagon. And I'm like, you should have just never said anything about that. And I think Moxley also mentioned it in his promo, which is fine. Like, he wraps it up into his promo. But, like, order these segments differently, because this is the segment I would have preferred to find out that because Pentagon got laid up last week, now Pac will be taking his place. Like, it totally made sense. But when I heard it earlier, I was like, why? I'm like, I'm like, does Pentagon have COVID? Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? Like, I'm wondering why he's been replaced, but kind of forgetting in a moment that they're running an injury angle from last week. But just play this first. Like, do this earlier in the show, and it logically makes sense. I'm like, oh yeah, he got beat up. Pac's gonna take his place. Pac cuts a good promo, saying that, maybe he doesn't like Moxley, but like they're gonna show Moxley what brotherhood is like, between him and Phoenix, and then put Moxley later in the show and just have him reference, that he's teaming with these guys, or have the announcers, say something about it later. It just felt like this was the first of a few different times when someone said something during the show, and then they put the good video package about it later. And I'm like, no, let the video package be them telling us the news, and then have the commentators like confirm the news later and just say something about it. But I would have much rather found out from this video package, because I thought it was pretty good.
Next up, we had Shaq. He was apparently on the AEW Awards show that they did. It was just like a Viewers' Choice Awards kind of for AEW stuff. He's basically on the set of the NBA show that he does, and this was probably the lamest promo and like the weakest, like nothing behind it promo. Basically, he just calls Cody a punk a few times, like he can't think of any other word, and he says, "Let's do it in March." That's basically it. Like, I saw some hilarious tweets. Is like, my 5-year-old can better trash talk than Shaq can.
No, that's the truth. And he also called him a little girl. He said,
because he had blonde hair.
Yeah. Like a little... Yeah, because he has blonde hair. I'm like, so does like 50% of the male population of the world. And you're just going to be like, he's got blonde hair. Looks like a little girl. I'm like, it's not even long. Like, if you said like Griff Garrison looks like a little girl, I'd be like, all right, yeah, whatever. Like, he's got curly, long blonde hair. But Cody's like, looks cool. I'm like, this guy has no clue what he's talking about. You know what? Like, I'll be interested in this match solely for Shaq, like, being in the ring and seeing how good or how bad this goes. Like, that's my only, it's more of like a morbid curiosity at this point. But I'm not actually interested in the feud at all. And to be honest, Cody is the only thing in this feud that makes me even slightly interested, because I tend to like everything he does. But this is one of the first times, actually, now that I think about it, this might be one of the first times he's been in like a match or a feud that I'm not like, oh, I don't like this. You know what I mean? Like, because everything else he did with Jericho, with Brody Lee, with, any of his previous feuds in AEW have been great. His even feuds or just one-off matches. Like, I've really enjoyed a lot of his matches. And, Dustin, one of the first big matches of AEW's history. Him and Dustin was amazing. So, like, there's not been a lot that Cody has been involved in that I didn't like. And for the most part, I actually think it's a huge strength of AEW is whatever Cody's involved in. And not this time. This is weird.
Just for fun, factual, only 3% of the world population has blonde hair. Naturally.
All right, you know what? I need a fact checker. Thanks for being my fact checker. 3% of the world's population?
And 2 have red hair. Yep.
Wow.
All right. We
you know what? That makes sense, because I guess there probably aren't a ton of natural blondes from like India or China, right? Probably a lot of dark hair, and that's like a third of the world population. So I've been to India before. I didn't meet any blonde-haired people, so I'm stupid.
Cody, we get the response. Tony is in the ring, invites Cody and Arn Anderson. Tony wants a response in regards to Shaq and Jade. Cody basically says he'd rather just give you the pitch, and says he said it was going to be Cody and Brandy versus Shade and Shaq and Jade. Obviously, this can't happen because Brandy is preggo. So he says, at this point, I am a bit distracted, so I'm going to defer to Coach Arn Anderson. He says, But then he also says before they came out, Arn Anderson chewed him out for being too competitive with Peter Avalon, or taking Peter Avalon too lightly last week, which is a valid criticism because he should have just destroyed Peter Avalon. And then Arn says that Cody is going to be a dad soon and that's going to live in the front of his mind, but you have plenty of time. And then he asks, does the date June 29th, 1985 mean anything to him? And Cody says no, which is the dumbest thing in the world because it's the day before he was born. It's like, obviously it means something a little bit. You know, it's not like this is like 4 weeks before he was born or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, even then it'd be like, well, my mom was pregnant with me. But it was the day before his birthday, and he still shakes his head no. He tells a story about how Dusty did a 30-minute match with Tully and then flew across the country for the birth of Cody. I don't know how he would not put this together. Anyways, Arn babbles on a bit about how Shaq was top of the game, blah, blah, blah. Talks about Jade a little bit. And then introduces Red Velvet. So Red Velvet is taking Brandy's place. She says that she is fed up with Jade, fed up with getting attacked and Brandy being disrespected, and says she knows Cody would never put his hands on Jade, but I will. And that was about it. Red Velvet was probably the highlight of this segment, even though it wasn't like excellent, but it was decent.
So a couple notes from this segment for me. Yeah, Red Velvet was like definitely one of the higher points of this segment. Her promo was good. Like, she came out and she said a few lines, and she obviously meant it. So I don't know. I actually thought she did pretty well. But to be honest, like, Arn just gets a little rambly for me sometimes, and I think he's good in short doses. But a long promo, I was like, I don't know, you know. This happens for a lot of the legends in AEW right now. So Tully, Arn, and Jake Roberts for me are all really, really good in a small dose. And knowing that they're there and maybe having them like kind of, you know, involved with a match, or, you know, Arn coming out with Cody as his coach, I like Tully interfering on behalf of FTR. But when they are given long promos, sometimes I'm like, you guys are a little hit and miss here. So I thought that this was a little wobbly from him. I didn't see Cody shake his head no. Did he shake his head no?
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't notice that. I just saw Arn like say it, and then I thought Arn kind of cut him off and was like, well, I'll tell you. You know what I mean? But if he shook his head no, then that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Right. He gave the shrug and shook his head. He's like,
oh, I don't know, the day before I was born? Like, how do you not know that? Plus, you know he knows this, right? Like,
right.
This is clearly, like, he knows that his dad had this match. Like, he is not an idiot. He knows a lot about his family, his history, his father. Like, I guarantee you he already knew that fact, like, in real life. So it doesn't really make a ton of sense for me. The other thing that really made me laugh in this segment was, did you notice when Red Velvet said that Cody won't put his hands on Jade? She said, I think, like, he won't lay a finger on her, like, in anger or something like that or something. And one guy in the crowd goes, "'Cause he sucks." And Cody behind her just is like, goes, and he's like trying not to laugh, but just one dude, because the camera's on Red Velvet, and then like back over her shoulder you see Cody.
Well, the funny thing is, the only people, because this was a tape show, it was all just employees and families and friends of AEW. So it was
even a fan.
It wasn't even like a regular fan.
So it's like someone he knows probably saying this.
Yeah.
Because he sucks, and he just like tries not to laugh. It was the funniest thing about this whole segment. It redeemed it for me. But yeah, Red Velvet like finished it off strong. Like, I never in my life would I have thought that Tony Schiavone, Arn Anderson, and Cody Rhodes are in the ring. And the best part about the promo is when they bring out Red Velvet to cut her, you know, finishing piece. Yeah. And it makes sense based on the feud between her and Jade that's kind of been coming up since Jade arrived. So I actually, like, I see where they're going with it. but that doesn't mean I'm interested.
And Red Velvet has been adopted into the Nightmare family as well. But that was like weeks and weeks ago. Like we haven't seen her really since that. But yeah.
Right.
Next up we have is just a quick video segment. Penelope Ford, Kip Sabian wedding invitation. Really not much. They just basically say it's happening, and Miro is bringing Charles the butler. Are we not getting our bachelor party? Where's the bachelor party? I expected the bachelor party this week.
I did too, and nothing happened. That seems weird, especially because they've said it on Dynamite that like that's part of the best man's responsibility. So like, are we not televising that? Because there was some untapped potential for a funny segment with Charles the Butler. So this was a shorter segment than I was expecting, considering the fact these guys are getting married next week. Seems a little weird.
Right. So are we going to get this as a Road to segment on the YouTube channel? Are we going to get this on BTE? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably going to be on BTE, and that's disappointing for me because I really thought that they could have done something here. Like, if you're going to go with this, because I would have never made Chuck Taylor, like, the butler. Like, this is not a storyline I probably would have ever pursued. Miro wouldn't even be involved with these guys, like, if I had booked this, you know, from the ground up. But, like, now that you're here, and now that you've given yourself this setup in this position, like, go for it. Like, do something wacky, right? Do something stupid. Like, all these guys are genuinely funny. Like, Miro, Chuck, you know, even Kip. Like, these guys can really get it, like, a good laugh. So, like, do an extended backstage segment. And they didn't. I was like, that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Right, and you figured we would see, because of Chuck Taylor is over there now, you figure we would see some of, like, the wedding planning, or he's, you know, involved, but nothing. We got nothing out of this. So I have no idea what kind of the point of that was at this point. I mean, they could have made it good, but they just, like, totally dropped it. Next up, we had Ryan Nemeth versus Adam Hangman Page. Hilariously, I didn't catch Ryan's first name. I only caught it later listening to a podcast. I subconsciously wrote down his brother's name. I wrote Nick Nemeth as who it was. For those who don't know, Ryan Nemeth is Dolph Ziggler's brother.
I honestly didn't realize it was his brother. I thought maybe it was like his kid, but then I was like, Dolph Ziggler doesn't have a kid this old.
Right.
Dolph Ziggler probably doesn't have a kid.
Right.
Dolph Ziggler probably isn't settling down until he's like 100. So like, I was like, yeah. So I don't know anything about his personal life, but he didn't strike me as the kind of guy to have a grown child. So I was really confused about what the relationship was at first. I was like, because this guy is definitely not ripping off Dolph Ziggler, but like he's pointing at his butt and he's doing his little like, I was like, he has a lot of similar mannerisms. So I was like, how are they related?
Yeah, so I thought it was funny that I subconsciously wrote down Nick Nemeth. I originally wrote down, which was pretty funny. Basically, this match was a squash. They did give Ryan some stuff. Page beat the crap out of Nemeth for the most part. Big boot, shoulder block, crossbody off the top, over the top rope to the floor. Nemeth made a small comeback, and then Matt Hardy makes his way out to ringside doing some scouting, and we're curious, who's he scouting? He is out there scouting Hangman because he's actually cheering him on when he hits some moves. I noticed Aubrey put on gloves, but I didn't see anybody bleeding, so I was kind of curious why that happened. Maybe somebody had a slight bloody nose or something that didn't really show up.
I don't remember seeing any blood.
Hangman makes a comeback. Nemeth actually hits a desperation spike DDT, but it doesn't take long. Hangman comes back with some strikes, hits the buckshot lariat, which Nemeth was way out of position for, and he gets the win. And this is when Hardy kind of makes his presence known. he's walking up. He came out of from the side, and now he's walking up on and leaving via the stage. And this is where Hangman kind of calls out to him, and Hardy turns around and he's called back into the ring by Hangman, wondering what's going on. Tony runs down with a microphone, and Hardy says that he didn't want to make a scene. He just came out to show his support. He's been watching him for the past few months. He seems he's conflicted, and then that the Bucks and Omega have turned their back on him. Hardy says that he's that Hangman, you're a good person, and you need to hear that. And Hardy says that he's seen him dressing by himself out in the hallway adjacent to catering, and says that he's more than welcome to use Hardy's huge dressing room. And also, I forgot to write it down, but somebody did post it in our Discord chat that the lower third for Hangman this week said, accompanied by crippling emotional baggage.
I was going to mention it if you didn't. That was one of my favorite ones so far. This is just like a good running joke now. I like how they keep doing that. The Matt Hardy angle is, it's an interesting twist. Yeah, I'm interested to see where that goes. I don't know if he really fits the big money Matt / private party vibe. I really don't think that they would really be well suited together. And I don't even think a little bit of, modification to Hangman's character or his gear would even fit. Like, it would have to be pretty drastic, I think, for him to join these guys. But it was interesting because, like, he's reaching out to him. There was not a single, like, unless you're reading subliminally, like, there was no overt heel overtones here. Like, it was genuinely like, I care about you. You seem like you're going through a lot. If you need a place to use, like, here's my dressing room. Like, again, you kind of read into it because he's a heel and you're like, oh, he's just trying to manipulate this guy, like, just like everyone else. But, like, there wasn't nothing about it on the surface that made it seem like he wasn't trying to be genuine to him. So that's kind of where the question is for me. I definitely don't want to see Hangman join his group, but it also didn't seem like he was offering that either. He wasn't saying, like, come be a part of our state. He literally was just like, use our dressing room. So that was kind of interesting. And it's kind of nice to know that even though, the heel face dynamic there is different, like, maybe he has a friend, because they definitely have played up that, like, Hangman is friendless, completely friendless. The only people who wanted to be his friends were the Dark Order, and he told them no. So
right.
It's kind of a interesting storyline going on here. It was intriguing, and it's obviously not the end of the story, so I'll keep watching because I thought it was an interesting continuation.
Yeah, this probably wouldn't be a bad idea to Hangman is kind of in limbo at the moment. He's still obviously the very conflicted character, which I think he's probably one of the most well fleshed out characters on the show. Because we know that he's conflicted. He's been having a lot of inner turmoil for a year and a half at this point, just trying to find himself. And we've been going the ups and downs with Hangman. He's had his ups and downs, although he's like 20-6. His record for 2020 was 21-6. So he's at least doing well in the ring, but just kind of in the outside, he's just kind of trying to find himself. So going into a program with Matt Hardy might not be such a bad thing, since he's kind of in that, they need something for him to do. He's not going to be up in the... He's going to eventually make his way up into the upper card, I would think, getting back into the title picture, but I don't see that happening until at least the end of the year. So this might be a good program to kind of turn things around for him, get his confidence back type of deal, dealing with Matt Hardy and kind of seeing through Matt Hardy, and then that might give Hangman's character that kind of confidence that, all right, my judge of character is coming back. Like, everybody I thought who were my friends, my judging of people's character was totally way off from various stuff, and now I think I'm kind of getting back here. So I wouldn't mind seeing a program here with Hardy and Hangman going out for the next couple months. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think that Hangman obviously has to be the guy to take the belt off of Kenny Omega, but they are not, in my opinion, they're not going to hotshot that belt. That belt will not see major title changes more than once or twice a year ever, I don't think. I think that they're going to go for some longer reigns. I think 2 title changes in a year, I think, would be probably the max that these guys are looking to go for, because people aren't going to hold it for a month. So honestly, when this first started with Matt, I was just like, oh, that's weird. I think, him and Omega are supposed to be doing something. But then I'm like, wait, Omega won in December. And the last 2 champions were championed for I want to say Jericho. Now I'm testing myself. I want to say Jericho was like 250 something days.
Somewhere around that, think. Probably.
And I know Moxley was in the 300s. Yeah. I want to say it was, yeah. So, I mean, you're talking about a nearly a year reign for Jon Moxley. Omega is of the same caliber. Like, they will not have him drop this belt actually, he's not even fighting for it at Revolution. But, like, they are not going to have him drop this at the second pay-per-view of the year. I mean, if this happens, then, I mean, he might not hold it through all of 2021, to be honest. And I think they've got a lot of gas in the tank for Omega. So now it kind of makes sense to me, because I was thinking that Hangman needed to be in that picture, but he doesn't need to be, not immediately. He can still be the guy to take it off him and have 1 or even 2 feuds before that one starts.
Yeah, depending on how everything plays out, not with relationships between other companies as well. Obviously, hopefully, we're going to be back to some sort of semblance of normalcy come late summer into the fall. I think at least that's the projection, to be able to get everybody in the country vaccinated who wants to get vaccinated. Well, that's another issue, but yeah, but I just pulled it up. You're a little overshooting on the days, but Jericho was 6 months, 182 days. Moxley was 277. But yeah, Omega, I don't see, I see it's Hangman being the person to take it off of Omega, but I don't see that happening until 2022. I don't think Omega's going to be losing the belt this year. And if he goes more on his belt collector run, and we get some opening up from other promotions as well, and he might end up grabbing the Impact World title and maybe some other promotion. I don't know what other promotions well, maybe AAA, but Mexico's a mess at the moment, so who knows in that. But like I said, you can tune in later tonight, but fantasy booking wise, if the relationship between New Japan and AEW opens up, I could see it would be awesome if Kenny Omega was the one to take the belt off of Kota Ibushi, because that's a program I think everybody wants to see.
As you said that, I was like nodding, and then I realized what you were saying, and I was like, right, because in my mind now, like, Kenny is the star of AEW, Kota Ibushi's here in New Japan. Like, I'm like, the relationship is so apparent, but it took me a second, and now I'm like freaking out, man. That'd be insane. But honestly, like, what I'd like personally, if I was gonna fantasy book it, I don't know if I'd throw Kenny right back into the title picture in New Japan, but what I would have him do is be the AEW World Champion, be the Impact World Champion, and then be the 6-man never open weight 6-man with him and the Good Brothers. Oh, yeah. So like, they've all got all this gold, because the Good Brothers could have the Impact Tag Team titles and the 6-man belts, and Kenny could have 3 belts. Like, that would be insane.
But we could also keep the heat still on Hangman and have Kota Ibushi take the AEW title off of Kenny. You do it the other way around. Have Kota Ibushi take the AEW title. This is way out.
This is fantasy booking. I'm like, I've got my notepad.
All right, let's go. Tune in tonight at 6:00 Eastern, and we're going to be talking about all this crazy stuff. All right, let's move on here. We have what I think was definitely the match of the night. This should have been the main event of the show, and this was Dax Harwood versus Jungle Boy. And before the match starts, Tully and Cash Wheeler are handcuffed to Luchasaurus Luchasaurus on the outside to prevent anybody from getting involved in the match. We start off the match, lots of back and forth, lots of strikes to start off. Dax tries a spear into the corner, but Jungle Boy moves out of the way. Nobody home. He flies through the turnbuckles into the ring post. They fight on the outside for a bit. Dax hits a 12-6 elbow into the nose. And then back in the ring, Dax hits a 2 count off of a Northern Light suplex. We have some working over of the arm from Jungle Boy. We have some mat wrestling through the break. And Jungle Boy starts to make a comeback with some elbows and strikes. Jungle Boy gets caught on the top rope, and Dax hits this crazy avalanche belly to back suplex. Looks like they just killed Jungle Boy right there. They get into a nice striking exchange, throwing punches and slaps and chops and all that fun stuff. Jungle Boy flips out of a suplex attempt, hits a super kick, and Harwood fires back with a clothesline. Jungle Boy Rana's out of a power bomb for a near fall. Dax ends up hitting the power bomb for a close 2. And then Jungle Boy hits a couple of suplex. Dax I love this. They were in like this little striking exchange, and Dax goes for a punch, but he fakes it. And when Jungle Boy ducks his head, he grabs on and hits a spike DDT. These are the little things that Dax Harwood is so good at. Just, these little. We always have these matches. It's like back and forth, or these moves flow into another, but this is one of those ones. He takes a beat to stop to stop the movement, but then it plays into it because Jungle Boy ducks the punch here, and he ends up grabbing the DDT and hit for a 2 count. They go for a bunch of roll-up attempts from both sides, and as Dax Harwood kicks out of one of them, he gets caught in Jungle Boy's finisher, the snare trap, and Luchasaurus is holding back Tully and Cash as they're trying to get to the ring, and Dax Harwood is tapped out clean in the middle by Jungle Boy. This match was excellent. Dax Harwood, he is amazing anyways, like you're just saying, just the little things that he does to break up the pace, and Jungle Boy is just amazing, and he's, 23 and a half years old.
Absolutely. It's disgusting how young this guy is. He moves so well in the ring. I will say that before the match, there was a short video package, and Jungle Boy came off a little flat in his promo delivery. So that's probably one area he probably needs a little bit more work. I think he actually did pretty well last week when they had the face-to-face with, FTR and Jurassic Express. I thought that promo was like, it was still kind of a little whatever, but I thought it was a bit better. This week, like to the camera, I didn't think that Jungle Boy really came off that passionate, or just there was something about it. I was like, yeah, I didn't really love it. But in the ring, he flies. He moves so well, and his song too. So they've got him, Tarzan Boy, the song that he used to use on the Indies. They've got that back for him. I think the song. So now whenever they want, it's not just like a borrowing thing. I think he's using it permanently. And he honestly, like, the crowd is chanting the chorus. Like, he is absolutely on his way up. And once they have full crowds in the building, I think that the momentum will be behind Jungle Boy 100%. I was listening to Wrestling Observer Online a bit, and they feel the same way. That Jungle Boy is really headed to the moon. Maybe not immediately, maybe not even this year, but he absolutely is a star of the future, 100%. We knew this already. As for the match, I thought it was fantastic. I did have a little problem, again, where they mentioned the handcuffing thing earlier in the show before this video package. And then they have the video package with Jungle Boy saying, hey, in order to mitigate their cheating ways, he didn't say it like that, but, we're going to have them handcuffed to Luchasaurus. Like, they give an explanation. But they'd already in the show had a graphic that said Luchasaurus handcuffed to Tully, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like, give me the video package explaining why the decision was made, then show me a graphic, or then have the commentators mention it, because it just kind of ruins the surprise, or at least the reason. You know what I mean? You could have just explained something a little bit better. So the choosing the order of the segments seemed a little weird, but the match was excellent. Like, just 100%. Two insanely great wrestlers in the ring. That spot you mentioned actually was my favorite spot of the entire match, even though there were some really cool, like, avalanche, suplex and stuff. The best spot of the match was a punch, a fake punch, and then just an immediate DDT. And I've always been a fan of the DDT in general. I've always thought that if I were to ever start wrestling, that's a move I'd want to use as a signature move. So any variation of the DDT for me, especially Johnny Gargano comes to mind, the slingshot DDT through the middle rope. I love any variation of that. And this was just a perfect little storytelling beat that made sense, because of course he's going to duck a punch when it's the second or third one in a flurry, but then he just pulls back and just bam, hits him. So I thought that was just genius. And I really respect these guys. I think they did a great job in the ring. And to be honest, it's not the result I expected. I didn't know, or even really have a feeling, that Jungle Boy was winning this one. But man, they are making him look like $1 million.
Yeah, this is how you make a star, and I can see Jungle Boy getting the TNT Championship within the next year and a half.
Yep, I absolutely think he'll be challenging for the TNT Championship in the next year. And I think he should be, rightfully so.
Post-match, we have, as soon as Tully and Cash are uncuffed, Tully throws powder in the face of Luchasaurus, and I forget what podcast I was listening to, but they like crapped over this spot because they're like, if Tully had the powder the whole time, why didn't he use it earlier? I'm like, well, if you do it then you just make Luchasaurus dead weight. You're still handcuffed to the guy. It doesn't matter. I'm like, this is like your logic does not make any sense, because now you suddenly have a 300-pound dead weight tied to you. So I don't know why. Anyway,
exactly. And if you exhibit that fact that you are planning on cheating somehow with this stuff, he's just going to drag you up the ramp and just like beat you down.
Right.
So of course you wouldn't do it until you were free to run away from him.
Yeah. And they did have the nice little thing here. So they undid Tully and Cash, but that leaves, he still had the handcuffs attached to Luchasaurus. So Tully and Wheeler, while Luchasaurus is dealing with the powder in the eyes, they go into the ring, and all three of them hit a what'd they do to Jungle Boy? I forget what they did to Jungle. They just kind of beat him up.
It was
pretty
some
much.
sort of like 3-person vertical suplex, I think, or did they hit that on Luchasaurus?
Oh, it was like the slingshot, like double power bomb type of deal, something like that. And then Luchasaurus tries to make his way into the ring. They end up hitting this double spike pile driver with Tully jumping off the second rope. And this was crazy because how they set it up, they actually had Dax and Cash had Luchasaurus between the two of them. So normally your head would land between the guy's legs, but now he's landing between two different guys. But they kept him safe, and they hit the pile driver. And then, since the handcuffs are still stuck to Luchasaurus, they cuff his hands to the ropes. They grab some scissors. I had no idea where they were going to go here. I thought they were going to unmask him. Wouldn't that make the most sense? But anyways, they actually cut the horns off of Lucha's mask. And then it looks like they're going to go cut Jungle Boy's hair, and then half of the babyface locker room run out at this point. SCU, Top Flight, and a few other guys. Yeah. They all run out and send FTR and Tully running away. So yeah, this feud is not over.
No, not over at all. And one of the things I actually really liked about this is because like FTR have this reputation when they were the Revival, and now when they're FTR, they've kind of maintained this: no flips, just fists, no gimmicks. We are who we are. We're guys, you know, from Carolina or wherever they're from, and like it's who they are. You know what I mean? Like they don't do big gimmicky things. So it totally makes sense that they're like, this idiot's pretending to be a dinosaur. We're going to disrespect that. You know what I mean? We're going to cut the horns off his dinosaur face or dinosaur mask. And like that absolutely makes sense to me. So I didn't know where they were going with the scissors. I thought maybe they were going to cut off like one of his like green braided, braids or something. I thought that maybe they would cut his hair or something, which is obviously where they went with Jungle Boy. But the horns thing actually kind of made sense to me because I was like, they're kind of trying to chop down this idiot thinks he's a dinosaur. Like he's not really a dinosaur. Look, it's a rubber. So I thought that was pretty neat. But when they were going to cut Jungle Boy's hair, and here's one complaint, and I always hate to criticize WWE, but one thing that WWE always does is like, there could be a babyface being beaten down and no one runs out. Like they make these people look like they have no friends. And when Jungle Boy's hair was about to get cut, there was like 8 people running out from the locker room like, you will not cut this kid's hair. So I thought that was really good. You know what I mean? They're like, no, we're going to defend this kid. And so at first, I saw Marco Stunt run out, and he had a chair in his hand, like a gold-plated folding chair. And I thought it was just him. So when FTR scattered, I was like, why are you guys all running from a small child, even though he has a chair in his hand? But then I realized there was like 8 people behind him, and I was like, oh, this totally makes sense. So I actually really like this closing angle.
All right. We have a segment where Taz is out back in the parking lot type of area, and Taz says that they're ready for the street fight, and then they look over and see the merchandise table, and there's no Team Taz gear, and they beat up the merch table guys for no reason.
Yeah, it literally was, you're selling, because they were selling Sting shirts.
Gear, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't Team Taz, it was just Sting shirts. And like, what's funny is like, that seems stupid, but to me it's a logical reason for these guys. Like, for what we know about these guys and about their character, it's
Uh-oh. Not sure if we lost him.
they put them through the ringer. Like, one of them hit the truck, one of them went over a metal gate, one of them went through a table. Ricky Starks picked up a dude, and I'm like, I know Ricky Starks is strong, but you look at him as the smallest member of this group, and then he just picks up this dude and power slams him or choke slams him through a table. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. So it was just a short segment, but I liked it a lot because it seems like consistent with their character. Team Taz brand, FTW for life. So I thought it was cute.
Next up, we had Shayna versus Britt Baker. I was a little sad that it was Shayna coming out here. And I'm like, oh, Britt's going to beat Shayna. And I'm like, I want Shayna to get higher up on the card here, not to get killed by Britt here. They start off with some mat work. Britt punches Shayna until Britt punches Shayna in the face. Shayna fires back, hits a step up enziguri. She goes for a basement drop kick with Britt laying or kind of leaning against the ropes. Rebel pulls Britt out of the way, so Shayna goes through the ropes to the floor. They fight on the outside. Rebel distracts Shayna. Britt attacks from behind. Britt hits a sling blade on the floor. They post Shayna, and then Britt works over Shayna through the commercial, and here once again, same thing. But it was a little different because they actually cut a piece out of this match because the picture-in-picture didn't go through the entire commercial break. But as soon as the commercial is over, Shayna is making a comeback. They did a bit of rolling here. Britt hits a back kick to the face of Shayna, swinging neck breaker. Shayna avoids a lockjaw. She hits a stunner and then a basement drop kick to the face. And then Rebel, for some reason, jumps up onto the apron, but nothing really comes of it because they were just kind of jockeying for a position in the middle of the ring. Britt escapes a waist lock, and then Britt puts on the lockjaw. So this ending was super clunky, and I have no idea why Rebel even needed to jump up onto the apron to create a non-distraction, because nothing actually came out of the distraction. And then
Is that when she gave her the glove?
No. That was just like a regular
glove?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, I don't remember her jumping up on there.
Yeah,
I remember her giving her the glove.
Right. No, it was because Shayna escaped the first lockjaw attempt, so she already had the glove. And yeah, Rebel jumped up onto the apron while Shayna just had a waist lock on Britt, and Britt just reversed out of it. It's like, this made no sense at all. It wasn't even like a distraction. Like it was just like a regular wrestling happening. So I don't know what the heck happened. Post-match, Rebel and Britt beat up Shayna some more. Thunder Rosa runs out, and Rebel and Britt run away, and Thunder Rosa goes to check on Shayna. I thought this match was okay, but the ending was super clunky. And like I said, I was a little bummed that Shayna was the one that had to come out here and eat the pin here.
I like Shayna as well. I think that it was, it possibly could have been somebody else. But you know what? Like, I've had to come to terms with this because when AEW first began, there were so many guys that I thought were capable of, holding the title, or, at least in the next couple of years, holding the title kind of thing. Jericho obviously was the right decision in the first place, but guys like Jungle Boy, as I've talked about, there's a history of me on this show talking about how I think Jungle Boy should be pushed even harder. But I've come to the terms with the idea that not everyone can be at the top of the card all the time. Like, there needs to be times and seasons, essentially. Like, certain people for certain times are your guy for that time, and sometimes not. Hangman Page should be the rightful AEW World Champion, in my opinion. But like, that doesn't make it wrong that he's in a program with Matt Hardy. Or, I mean, just not everyone can be your top guy always. And if everyone is protected, then no one's protected. So for Shayna to eat this, like, it made me sad. But like, as long as she gets her time in the sun, and hopefully soon, because I think she actually is one of their better women on the card, then I'll be happy. But
I think she's also one of the oldest women on the card, though, too.
Is she really?
Yeah, she's 38. So
I did not know that.
Yeah. She looks a lot younger, so I guess she's not like backed up the miles.
Maybe her time should be sooner than than expected. But honestly, yeah, I've had to deal with that because there's a lot of guys out there who I think are very well deserving and put in the time. But in the end of the day, there's one belt, right? Or maybe there's more than one, but there's still a few. And you've got to have the right time. You got to have the right material too. You got to have a storyline ready to go for someone that's going to make sense and going to elevate them. Because it's no use putting them in the title picture if the storyline's trash anyway. So
yeah, but we've seen some. I think we've seen some women in the title picture that I think Shayna's way better than that we've seen up in the title picture. I mean, we've seen Big Swole hanging around there, which Shayna's significantly better than Big Swole. And the Abaddon storyline just did not work at all. So it's like those are like two sections right there where you could have replaced either one and it would have been better. But we'll see how that goes. And even that there has been, when was the last time Hikaru Shida was on the show? Was it the Abaddon match like 3-4 weeks ago?
I think it was 3 weeks ago.
Okay. All right, we after the match, we had a segment. MJF's looking for Sammy, and he finds him backstage. He tells Sammy that he told Wardlow to stay out of the match last week. He didn't tell him to get involved, and he's his worst employee he's ever had, and he's docking his pay for the week. Sammy isn't buying any of it, and MJF's like, so you want to play it this way? And Sammy says, I ain't playing. And so they're continuing on. MJF, Sammy, sowing the dissent here. I mean, Sammy's going babyface soon at this point.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's not much to say about this other than Sammy's going babyface. Like, they just keep making it very obvious. Unless there's like some major swerve, he absolutely will be. The only other swerve I could have thought of, and this is just me, I don't know what you think about this, but the only other swerve I could see them potentially pulling was Sammy staying heel, and actually Sammy being the one to turn on Chris Jericho and try to take over the Inner Circle. And Sammy go like major heel, because I think Jericho is going babyface either way whenever this ends. Like, whoever takes over the Inner Circle or whatever power struggle split happens, Jericho's going babyface. I think that's probably how he'll end his career, in my opinion. And I think that's awesome. So something that had popped in my head was whether or not Sammy, because Sammy's not happy with Jericho either. Like, he's unhappy with Max, but he's definitely unhappy with Jericho based on him choosing Maxwell over himself because Les Sex Gods is dead now. And, people love Les Sex Gods. So I think that this is to be determined, but Sammy going babyface seems like the most natural option at this point.
Yeah. They run down the card next week for the matches we have. I'm guessing they're going to have at least one more match on here. We're going to have a tag team battle royale, and the winners face the Young Bucks at Revolution, and the Young Bucks are actually in it. So if they win, they get to choose their opponent. The wedding of Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford is happening. Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa is happening. So that's going to be a good one. I'm a little sad that Thunder Rosa is probably going to eat the loss here, but Omega and Good Brothers versus Mox, Phoenix, and Pac. They mentioned Revolution is Sting and Darby Allin versus Ricky Starks and Brian Cage in the street fight. And then they say the women's tournament is coming up, and one of the first round matches, Riho versus Serena Deeb. This should not be an opening round match.
No, exactly. So I was disappointed at first when they said coming soon. They still said soon. And I was like, when is soon? Tell me when this is, please. But then they showed that graphic with Serena Deeb and Riho, and I was like, my reaction literally was just like, I have no clue what to say about this, because that does not seem like an opening round match, because someone has to lose it.
Right.
And, someone loses that match much later. So there's no way Riho loses that match. Right? Like, that's probably going to be
Serena Deeb is the NWA champion.
But it won't be for the champion.
I know, but still.
And Riho was the first AEW women's champion. So we haven't seen her. She's going to come back with a boatload of fire, I think. And I think she wins that match. But, like, that's a big decision.
This should be, like, semi-final. Or finals.
Yes. I don't know if I would say finals, because I think that, well, maybe it could be the finals.
I mean I figure it's going to be
100% no. Right. This should be like later in the bracket. And I was wicked surprised when I saw this. But like I said, like, to me, it's almost kind of predictable. Like, there's no way Riho loses her first match after being in Japan for like a year. Like, that can't happen.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. I mean, unless Serena Deeb maybe goes heel and just completely like beats her down, or I don't know what happens here. But it'll be interesting, and I can't wait for them to tell me when soon is, because this looks like it's actually going to have some real good matches.
Yeah. So we move on to the Good Brothers and the Bucks versus Dark Order. Oh, yep.
One other thing, the tag team battle royal. Okay, I'm down with a battle royal for sure, but remind me on this: aren't FTR ranked number 2? Or I'm sorry, number 1, like number 1 contenders. Possibly, and then maybe Jungle or Jurassic Express is number 2 right underneath them, right?
I think so.
So, like, why are we having this? Because it sure feels like we just had a good win from Jungle Boy in the number 2 spot over the number 1, or at least a member of the number 1 ranked contenders. Like, it just kind of feels like Jurassic. I know they're in a feud, but it feels like Jurassic Express should be getting a title match. And then all of a sudden it was just like, hey, we're just going to throw everyone in the pot. And I'm like, no. There are 2 really good teams, who are the number 1 and number 2 ranked contenders, who have good records, and you're gonna put them in there with like Varsity Blondes and like random other people. Like, I don't like that decision. Like, it feels like there's a little bit of credibility taken from their rankings and their records, because it definitely feels like there are teams who deserve a shot, and we should be having a straight tag team match.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm curious how this is going to play out. I know why they're doing it, obviously, because you have the Good Brothers sitting there as well, and I mean the Bucks are going to be in there, so yeah. I'm not sure how this is going to play out, but yeah, like you said, the rankings are already there. Why do a battle royale type of deal here? I mean,
the only good thing about it, in my opinion, is that they're doing it now in January, where people's 2021 records are like pretty flat. You know what I mean? It's like, well, actually, it'll be February, but whatever. It's like, it's at the beginning of the year. This year, everyone's record reset. But again, you still have ranked tag teams that should probably be getting a shot before you just throw everyone in the mix.
Right, so we have FTR, Jurassic Express, The Acclaimed, Dark Order, Uno, and Grayson, and then MJF and Jericho are ranked 1 through 5. But all of them is like 1-0, 2-0, 2-0, 0-0. So Uno and Grayson haven't even had a tag match this year, and then 1-0 for Jericho and MJF. Although I guess technically 2-0 now because they won their match.
2-0 now, yeah.
So yeah, I don't. We have the story with the Good Brothers. I mean, that kind of takes a little bit of precedence of why it would make sense to do it, depending on where they go with it. But if it just falls out that it's not the Bucks who win the Battle Royale, then it's kind of all for naught.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have the match of the Good Brothers and the Young Bucks versus Dark Order 1, 2, 3, and 4. So Uno, Grayson, Silver, and Reynolds. Pre-match, Dasha is asking Good Brothers and Bucks how they feel about tonight. For the first time, this is when they say, for the first time in 5 years, it's a full Bullet Club reunion. They say they beat up Penta for the Bucks, and the Bucks are saying, we didn't ask you to do that. Kenny comes in. He's a bit mad that they beat up Don. Don has like masking tape all over his face, which is kind of funny. They all argue. Tony said this. Does it sound like there's problems in the Bullet Club? So we have 2 references directly as these guys being Bullet Club. So I don't know how they get away with it without New Japan being pissed about it or giving their blessing. So I have
100%.
Yeah. Like
Also,
Meltzer's claiming there's nothing to it, but it's like, this is impossible to get away with from a trademark standpoint.
Exactly. And the other thing that made me laugh is when Tony said the problems in the Bullet Club. I just remember the BTE days of them in New Japan, and Cody's like, Bullet Club is fine. Like, everything is fine, when there was the power struggle between him and Kenny.
Right.
So, to be honest, this is where Cody needs to be, in my opinion. I think I understand he's kind of got a new image in the AEW of executive vice president and stuff, but, like, I think people forget, like, he was there for the absolute inception of AEW because he was in Bullet Club. And, like, some of the best stuff that they've ever put out on BTE, in my opinion, was that era of BTE when they were leaving New Japan. And there was a lot of, power struggle, and it was emotional even. Some of the stuff they put on BTE was like, wow, this hits hard. It was a real drama almost. So I'd prefer to see Cody involved with this storyline, not Shaq. But that's aside the point. But yeah, it definitely seems like New Japan, they're either really mad or really on board here. So I don't know which it is.
Yeah, I mean, it would make absolutely no sense. One, because this was a tape show as well. So this wasn't an accident that it was left in there. This wasn't a slip of a tongue. Right, twice. This wasn't like a slip from Tony saying something. this on live television, this was a taped show, so they could have removed it if they thought they were. But this is a direct reference to these guys being Bullet Club, and I don't know how that stands up in a legal sense. I mean, New Japan can easily defend their trademark here.
Before we review the last match, speaking of Bullet Club, did you see the finish to New Japan Strong?
I heard about it, that Jon Moxley made an appearance facing off against Kenta.
Yeah, Jon Moxley made a face-to-face appearance against Kenta, and Kenta is Bullet Club. So, here's yet another interaction between an AEW member and not just a member of New Japan, but a member of Bullet Club. I think that there's collaboration happening here. I don't care what Meltzer says.
I mean, there's got to be, because they would have to give permission to Moxley because that is taking place on U.S. soil. All right, so we have the match. Uno starts off with Anderson, and Silver ends up getting, which is fine, just a little back and forth. Silver gets the tag, and he wants Luke Gallows. John Silver, the shortest guy in the match, wants the tallest guy in the match. Gallows comes in, he puts his hand up for a test of strength, and then when Silver puts his hand up, he just puts it up higher. Like he cannot touch it. And then Gallows actually gets down on his knees so he can be at Silver's height, and Silver attacks him. And beats him up for a bit, but Anderson cuts it off with a knee to the back when he hits the ropes. Alex Reynolds gets tagged in. They get the heat on Reynolds for quite some time. Good Brothers and Bucks hit some quadruple team moves, and they all do the too sweet in the middle of the ring. So of course this is going to ruffle some WWE feathers as well, but I'm pretty sure there are that one's one they're like, yeah, we'll take it.
They don't care anymore about that.
Yep. Grayson gets a tag, and he runs wild. He has such a great hot tag. Him and John Silver, they both have insanely good hot tags. Here, he just takes out everybody. The ref gets distracted when Stu goes to tag out, but he didn't see it. So the ref actually kicks out Uno from the match, and this is where the Good Brothers attack Stu Grayson when the ref's back is turned, trying to get Uno out of the ring. They get the heat on Stu Grayson for a while. Then we have a massive breakdown, everybody fighting on the outside. And then I wrote, oh, look, a commercial. As soon as the commercial is over, Silver gets a hot tag, and he again has an amazing hot tag. He is just running all over the place, flying out of the ring. He hit everybody with at least something, and but Matt cuts off the comeback. The Dark Order then hits Matt with everything, so he gets a short comeback. They even hit Fatality on Matt, and Anderson has to come in, break it up. Uno, Silver, and Reynolds all get hit with apron bombs at the same time on the outside, and then Grayson gets hit with a quadruple super kick while he's kneeling, and then Uno has to break up the pin there. Uno gets hit by a magic killer from the Good Brothers. Bucks hit the Meltzer driver and get the victory. Post-match, let's talk about... Ooh, I almost spilled my entire drink. Let's talk about this match. Again, I thought this JR wasn't as crotchety about everything going down with the breakdown compared to last week. Last week, he was super crotchety about the breakdowns. These ones weren't as bad because we did have the ref being distracted, being pulled. So it was the heels cheating more than the ref being incompetent. So I think that improved here. But we had Good Brothers and Bucks doing a lot of quadruple team stuff, all working together on the same page. This is where it's starting to get really convoluted. Are the Bucks heels? Are the Bucks faces? Are they down with what's going on with Kenny and the Good Brothers? Obviously not, because they kind of beat up Don, or at least we think they beat up Don. They were not too happy about the Good Brothers beating up Pentagon last 2 weeks ago or last week. Yeah, the Bucks have been on a very are they aren't they since before the FTR since the FTR build.
I agree with that, and that's the only thing that really detracts here for me because I actually really liked this match toward the end. I mean, I liked all of it, but really, like halfway through this match, and there you go, commercial break again. But this really picked up. Like there was some really good action in this match. I really enjoyed. I'll tell you what, my favorite moment of this entire match was Silver and Doc Gallows when he reached up and then just went, oh, and he put his hand up higher. That was actually one of my favorite moments of the entire night. But yeah, what detracts here is that in the ring, these guys are all on the same page. Like, I think at one point Anderson broke up a pin for, I think one of the Bucks was getting pinned, or Anderson or Gallows broke it up.
Matt got hit with a fatality.
Together. That's exactly right. So, and then like they're hitting quadruple team moves, they're coordinating power bombs. Like they've all got them up, and they look at each other, and then they power bomb them all at the same time, or not quadruple, but I guess triple power bomb while one of them was in the ring. And yeah, there were just moments of this match where I'm like, if the story you're trying to tell is these guys are conflicted about, are we heel, are we face, are these guys our friends, are they not? Well, psychologically in the ring, everything looks like you guys are on the same page. Like you guys are doing it all together, and it looks good. Like they look good in there together, and I really liked this match, and I like them as a 4-man team. But like, is that what we should be thinking, right? Because it seems like they're on the same page. I know you'll talk about the post match in a second, but they appear to be on the same page at the end of the show as well. Like just in a minute or two more. So it's a little weird for me because before the match they were trying to say, well, we didn't do that for you. We didn't ask you to beat up these guys, right? But I think the way we're going to go here is that it's just Don Callis being manipulative. And I don't know if you noticed, but there was actually, as the Bucks were making their entrance, Callis tried to say something to Kenny, and Kenny kind of pushed him and was like, hey, like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And Callis was like, oh, my eye hurts. You know what I mean? But like, I think there's a little bit of dissension there. Not too much, obviously, not enough to like break anything up, or, we're not headed there just yet. But I do think that it's a little convoluted, and I hope it gets cleared up because this is definitely one of their premier storylines right now. So like, I have trusted AEW to tell me a full story, so I hope that this goes somewhere. Because if not, and it's just more confusion about what's really happening with the Bucks, then I don't like it so much. But I'm putting my faith in AEW for this.
Yeah, but yeah, the Bucks have been really wavering back and forth for quite some time now, and if it is all Don Callis is doing, then it just makes the Bucks look like suckers. And that's not what you want your top babyface team to look like. But right now we're kind of like in a middle ground where we don't know where they're going. They're conflicted, but they're not like in Hangman Page type of confliction. We have like just really, they're just can't figure out what they want to do.
Be my friends, but my friends are bad. So right. What do I do? Like,
right, exactly. So yeah. Post-match, we have Matt grabbing the mic, basically says that they're in the tag team battle royal next week. If they win, they get to choose whoever they want to face at Revolution, hinting Anderson and Gallows. And this is where Phoenix runs out and he does a springboard double drop kick to the Bucks. The Good Brothers try a magic killer, but Phoenix pushes away Anderson, I believe it was, and Moxley runs out to join the fight. And then Omega makes his way down, waving his steel toe shoe, but Moxley, not being a dumbass, hears Omega coming from behind. He immediately just kicks him in the gut, gives him a paradigm shift, and Phoenix and Mox are the ones standing tall at the end of this as they go off the air.
So I don't know if you got this vibe also, but this is just what I interpreted this as. When they said they could face anybody for the titles, they kind of like smiled and looked at the Good Brothers, and then they all too sweeted. Do you think that they're trying to allude that they would, if the Bucks win the Battle Royal, then they will pick the Good Brothers, and they expect them to lay down for them?
Maybe?
Because what would be funny for me is if they kind of allude to that, they win and be like, hey, we won the Battle Royal. you're our buddies. We're going to pick you guys. Like, you know, you're going to help us keep our titles. That's like a full heel move. And then, like, as they're laying down, right, just have the cover 1, 2, and then reverse it and have, like, Anderson roll up Matt for the 1, 2, 3 and have them win the titles. And now it's like, you know, it's like the splinters are back. Now it's clear. Bucks are babyface, and these guys are all in it for themselves. I just thought that'd be hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely a possibility. I mean, that would definitely, well, but then that makes the Bucks look like idiots. Again,
Pretty look like idiots,
right? But then they could,
again, that's a good point.
Then they could, or they could say, "Hey, Gallows and Anderson, why don't we make this title for title?" And they put up the Impact titles on the line as well on the match. So we could end up with double champions coming out of the match. That would be a possibility as well. Or the Bucks smarten up and they choose somebody else and completely break away from Kenny and the Good Brothers. And then we head off. Then we actually get into the feud of the Bucks versus Good Brothers and Omega, and then we have a clear break, and then we get into that feud.
Like, another thing too is that if that happens, if they go title for title and the Good Brothers win, and they are both AEW and Impact Tag Team titles, then 100% Kenny is winning the Impact World title, and then they've just got all sets of everything, right? So I mean that seems inevitable if they were to go title for title like that. But I think there's a lot of possibilities. And like I said, it's one of the most intriguing storylines I think they're running. It's just kind of confusing right now from the Buck perspective, from looking at it at that angle. I still enjoy everything they're doing with Don Callis, Kenny, the Good Brothers. And really, I'm definitely hooked into this. But there's a few things that need a little bit of clarification, like where do the Bucks actually stand here? Because they sure seem to be buddies at the end of the show. So that part's just a little strange for me.
Let's see. Actually, just saw on the Wrestling Observer, Penta is out because of a visa issue that has to get resolved. He's physically cleared, but currently has to take care of a visa issue to get back.
Interesting.
So we'll see how that plays out. Also, ratings this week, kind of interesting. I don't know if you knew about it, but that the first match, they were having an issue with the feed to a lot of the streaming services. Fight was not one of them, but for Hulu TV, YouTube TV, Sling, I guess the East Coast feed of that was messed up and was actually just like a color test screen for like the first 10-15 minutes of the show, and that actually came into play with a lot of people turning off the show and thinking something was messed up. So that came down to the ratings, and that kind of probably explained why the ratings were as tight as they were. AEW did 734, whereas NXT did 720, so very close, with Dynamite being down 14% from the previous week. But again, there was an NBA game, as well as Dynamite having the issue with the feed early in the show, so some people might have just turned off at that point and didn't even bother coming back. So
yeah, exactly.
We'll see how it goes. But yeah, it didn't. There wasn't a problem with the fight feed, and I think people who are watching delayed, like on the West Coast or whatever, unless they were watching it live, it wasn't a problem. So there is that. Right. So, but still decent as far as the ratings go. They're still kind of landing in that mid 700s to between the 900 and whatnot. They were almost close to 1 million back in December, on 3 shows there, or 2 shows there in the high 900s. So but it's January, that's how it goes, and with a little bit of an outage probably didn't help either.
And you know what? I think that they're taking that into consideration. The whole it's January thing. Like, wrestling tends to heat up as we get closer to WrestleMania, obviously. So I think that they're really going to start putting it on. And like, not to say that their shows haven't been good in the past few weeks, but I definitely think that there's another level that they can go to here. I mean, if I'm ranking these shows and just, rating them in a sense, like I think we've had a lot of B+ shows lately, and I think that they could really step it up in the next few months to head toward Revolution, to head beyond Revolution. And I think, to be honest, once we hit summer and we start hitting like, their mid-year pay-per-views, I think we're going to really start seeing like just even better television week to week. I think they're going to go after those ratings. Especially, there's been some news about the WWE Network is moving over to Peacock.
Right.
And I think that has raised some questions about what NXT will do, whether or not NXT is going to stay on Wednesday nights, which I think it will. I think that the reason it's there is just to combat AEW. But there are some questions. And I think once we get through this weird season right now, I think that this summer they're going to try to really turn it on. And I'm really excited for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is only the second year. We're in the year 2 of AEW, so we don't know what their trends are going to look like. Obviously, sitting on Wednesdays, they're going to have some competition when it comes to, late spring, where we have the hockey and NBA finals happening. Obviously, last year we were in the middle of COVID, so that all kind of didn't play out normally. So we don't know what the trends are going to look like year to year until we finally get to a kind of a couple normal years in a row. So even we probably won't know what their normal trends are going to be until, 2026, really, what the normal kind of ebbs and flows are going to be once we kind of get back into normal. Football obviously isn't going to be an issue for them because they're on Wednesday nights, they're not on Sunday or Mondays. And then probably we'll have the regular, October during playoffs for baseball, and then we have, playoffs for NBA and hockey in the late spring. But football isn't going to come in. So really, those are kind of going to be the 2 points of the year to look at, and the rest, they're pretty much home free for the rest of it. So,
right.
So I guess we'll see. Anything else you want to touch on before we wrap it up here and then come back in 5 hours, 5.5 hours?
No, I don't think so. Everything that I have in my brain right now is pretty much for the show later. So I'll keep it until then. But definitely intrigued where AEW is going here. And I mean, I think this topic that we're going to be doing here, so for everyone listening, in a few hours, please join us for our AEW New Japan Fantasy Show. But I think that this feels a lot more realistic now than it did 6 months ago. Like the kind of interaction they're having with Impact Wrestling, the presence of the Good Brothers on the show, the use of the word Bullet Club, Moxley appearing just last night on New Japan Strong. I'm really excited because this show that we're going to do in a little bit is going to be a little less it's still fantasy, but it's going to be a little less fantasy than I think we thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. So I'm really interested for that, and I'm excited to see AEW's continued collaboration with other companies, because that's kind of unprecedented if you've been a WWE fan for a long time. And before AEW began, I was a big fan of WWE. And to be fair, I still try to keep up with what's going on over there. And this is unheard of. Like, they are within their own universe. AJ Styles can show up and they'd be like, he's an accomplished wrestler from all over the world, And I'm like, no, he's not. He's so much more than that. You know what I mean? He's Mr. TNA. He's, and like, they won't acknowledge any of this crap. So just the littlest bit of collaboration just gets my creative juices flowing. So I'm really excited to see where they go.
And GCW show is still going on. They started at 8:00 last night. So they're an hour going. They're in hour 16 right now, running up onto hour 17.
Nope.
But there was actually a show this morning for New Japan, which I have to watch. I probably won't watch it before our thing tonight, but I will definitely watch the segment from New Japan Strong because I got to see that. So we'll talk about that.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right. So yeah, tune in later tonight, or you download the next episode if you're on the podcast feed, because we'll be doing all types of stuff. I think we have Caleb. You'll be back. I think Trey will be joining us, and I think Daryl will be joining us. So there'll be the 4 of us. So should be a good one. So thanks for listening and watching to That's Wrestling. If you're listening to this as a podcast, we do this show live over on both YouTube and Twitch, so you can choose your platform of choice. The link is in the show notes for that. If you're watching, you can snag this as a podcast on all your favorite podcast apps. If you cannot find it on your favorite podcast app, shoot me an email or a DM on Twitter at That's Wrestling 1 on Twitter, Eric at that'swrestling.com for email. So if you can't find it on your podcast app, shoot me an email so I can get it added over there, or you can head to that'swrestling.com to grab the RSS feed directly from there. There's a link to our Discord you can come hang out with. Head over to your favorite podcast app, drop a review for us as well, and I believe that is it. So we will see you later tonight. So for Caleb Johnson, my name is Eric LaRoche, and you have been watching and listening to That's Wrestling. See you later, guys.